Mustafa John. Thank you for taking us to places unseen. Mustafa John, exploring the world, living the dream.
Hello everyone, I am Mustafa John. Welcome to John Studio. This is the 35th episode of the Thailand series. Today we are visiting the Grand Palace in Bangkok. I want to share with you the history of Grand Palace, the Grand Palace, Phra Borom Maha, Ratchawang Lit. The Supreme Grand Palace is a complex of buildings at the heart of Bangkok, Thailand. The palace has been the official residence of the kings of Siam, and later Thailand, since 1782. The king, his court, and his royal government were based on the grounds of the palace until 1925. King Bhumibol Adulyadej, Rama IX, resided at the I. Chitralada Royal Villa, and his successor King Vajiralongkorn, Rama X, resides at the Amphorn Sathan Residential Hall, both in the Dusit Palace, but the Grand Palace is still used for official events. Several royal ceremonies and state functions are held within the walls of the palace every year. The palace is one of the most popular tourist attractions in Thailand, with over 8 million people visiting each year. Construction of the palace began on 6 May 1782 at the order of King Phutayotpha Chulalok, Rama I, the founder of the Chakri dynasty, when he moved the capital city from Thonburi to Bangkok. Throughout successive reigns, many new buildings and structures were added, especially during the reign of King Chulalongkorn, Rama V. By 1925, the king, the royal family, and the government were no longer permanently settled at the palace and had moved to other residences. After the abolition of absolute monarchy in 1932, all government agencies completely moved out of the palace. In shape, the palace complex is roughly rectangular and has a combined area of 218,400 square meters, 2,351,000 sqft, surrounded by 4 walls. It is situated on the banks of the Chao Phraya River at the heart of the Ratanakosin Island, today in the Phra Nakhon district. The Grand Palace is bordered by Sanam Luang and Nafralan Road to the north, Maharaj Road to the west, Sanam Chai Road to the east, and Tai Wang Road to the south. Rather than being a single structure, the Grand Palace is made up of numerous buildings, halls, pavilions set around open lawns, gardens, and courtyards. Its asymmetry and eclectic styles are due to its organic development, with additions and rebuilding being made by successive reigning kings over 200 years of history. It is divided into several quarters: the Temple of the Emerald Buddha, the outer court with many public buildings, the middle court, including the Phra Maha Monthian buildings, the Phra Maha Prasat buildings, and the Chakri Maha Prasat buildings, the inner court, and the Siwalai Gardens quarter. The Grand Palace is currently partially open to the public as a museum, but it remains a working palace, with several royal offices still situated inside. The construction of the Grand Palace began on 6 May 1782 at the order of King Phutayotpha Chulalok, Rama IX. Having seized the crown from King Taksin of Thonburi, King Rama IX was intent on building a capital city for his new Chakri dynasty. He moved the seat of power from the city of Thonburi, on the west side of the Chao Phraya River, to the east side of Bangkok. The new capital city was turned into an artificial island when canals were dug along the east side. The island was given the name Ratanakosin. The previous royal residence was the Durm Palace, constructed for King Taksin in 1768. The old royal palace in Thonburi was small and sandwiched between 2 temples, Wat Arun and Wat Tai Talat, prohibiting further expansion. The new palace was built on a rectangular piece of land on the very west side of the island, between Wat Pho to the south, Wat Mahathat to the north, and with the Chao Phraya River on the west. This location was previously occupied by a Chinese community, whom King Rama III ordered to relocate to an area south and outside of the city walls. The area is now Bangkok's Chinatown. Desperate for materials and short on funds, the palace was initially built entirely out of wood, its various structures surrounded by a simple log palisade. On 10th of June 1782, the king ceremonially crossed the river from Thonburi to take permanent residence in the new palace. 3 days later, on 13th of June, the king held an abbreviated coronation ceremony, thus becoming the first monarch of the new Ratanakosin kingdom. Over the next few years, the king began replacing wooden structures with masonry, rebuilding the walls, forts, gates, throne halls, and royal residences. This rebuilding included the royal chapel, which would come to house the Emerald Buddha. To find more material for these constructions, King Rama I ordered his men to go upstream to the old capital city of Ayutthaya, which was destroyed in 1767 during a war between Burma and Siam. They dismantled structures and removed as many bricks as they could find, while not removing any from the temples. They began by taking materials from the forts and walls of the city. By the end, they had completely leveled the old royal palaces. The bricks were ferried down the Chao Phraya by barges, where they were eventually incorporated into the walls of Bangkok and the Grand Palace itself. Most of the initial construction of the Grand Palace during the reign of King Rama was carried out by conscripted or corvée labor. After the final completion of the ceremonial halls of the palace, the king held a full traditional coronation ceremony in 1785. The layout of the Grand Palace followed that of the Royal Palace at Ayutthaya in location, organization, and the divisions of separate courts, walls, gates, and forts. Both palaces featured a proximity to the river, the location of a pavilion, serving as a landing stage for barge processions, also corresponded with that of the old palace. To the north of the Grand Palace, there is a large field, the Thong Phra Men, now called Sanam Luang, which is used as an open space for royal ceremonies. And as a parade ground, there was also a similar field in Ayutthaya, which was used for the same purpose. The road running north leads to the front palace, the residence of the Vice King of Siam. The Grand Palace is divided into 4 main courts, separated by numerous walls and gates: the outer court, the middle court, the inner court, and the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. Each of these courts' functions and access are clearly defined by laws and traditions. The outer court is in the northwestern part of the Grand Palace. Within are the royal offices and, formerly, state ministries. To the northeast is the Temple of the Emerald Buddha, the Royal Chapel, and home of the Emerald Buddha. The middle court housed the most important state apartments and ceremonial throne halls of the king. The inner court, at the south end of the complex, was reserved only for females, as it housed the king's harem. During the reign of King Futhaloetla Naphalai, Rama II, the area of the Grand Palace was expanded southwards up to the walls of Wat Pho. Previously, this area was home to offices of various palace officials. This expansion increased the area of the palace from 213,674 square meters, 2,299,970 SQFT, to 218,400 square meters, 2,351,000 SQFT. New walls, forts, and gates were constructed to accommodate the enlarged compound. Since this expansion, the palace has remained within its walls, with new construction and changes being made only on the inside. The palace was initially referred to only as the Phra Racha Wang Luang, Royal Palace, similar to the old palace in Ayutthaya. However, during the reign of King Mongkut, Rama IV, the name Phra Borama Maharaja Wang, or Grand Palace, was first used in official documents. This change of name was made during the elevation of Prince Chutamani, the king's younger brother, to the title of Second King Pinklao in 1851. The proclamation of his title described the royal palace as the Supreme and Great Maha Palace. This title was given in order to distinguish the palace from the Second King's Palace, the Front Palace, which was described as the Phra Bovorn Rachawang, or the Glorious Bovorn Palace. Throughout the period of absolute monarchy, from Midor's 1782 to 1932, the Grand Palace was both the country's administrative and religious center. As the main residence of the monarch, the palace was also the seat of government, with thousands of inhabitants including guardsmen, servants, concubines, princesses, ministers, and courtiers. The palace's high, whitewashed, castellated walls and extensive forts and guard posts mirrored those of the walls of Bangkok itself, and thus the Grand Palace was envisioned as a city within a city. For this reason, a special set of palace laws were created to govern the inhabitants and to establish hierarchy and order. By the 1920s, a series of new palaces were constructed elsewhere for the king's use. These included the more modern Dusit Palace, constructed in 1903, and Phaya Thai Palace in 1909. These other Bangkok residences began to replace the Grand Palace as the primary place of residence of the monarch and his court. By 1925, this gradual move out of the palace was complete. The growth and centralization of the Siamese state also meant that the various government ministries have grown in size and were finally moved out of the Grand Palace to their own premises. Despite this, the Grand Palace remained the official and ceremonial place of residence, as well as the stage set for elaborate ancient ceremonies of the monarchy. The end of the absolute monarchy came in 1932, when a revolution overthrew the ancient system of government and replaced it with a constitutional monarchy. I want to finish this video here. I hope that you must have liked my video and subscribed to my channel. See you next video. Take care of your health. Goodbye.